Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Notorious, as well as the latest episode of the Blacklist. Starting off with Notorious. Obviously, the big story of this episode was the fact about that football player being, his name Jason, being found dead, and then like this big social media app, what was it called, Whisper or something like that, blowing up, and it's all these messages of people saying like, oh yeah, Dax is a killer. Like one person started it, and then everyone in the school kind of took it as truth and just start spreading for us like, oh yeah, Dax, he's the killer. He's the killer, obviously, because he's a loner, he's a weirdo, obviously he's a freak, so obviously he killed Jason, which is kind of sucky that people have that. It's that mob mentality. It's like when one person kind of incites something, another person picks it up and it's like, yeah. Then another person's like, yeah. And you get like 10 more people going like, yeah, oh my God, it's totally true. It's like, obviously he's such a weirdo. Obviously it's gotta be him. And then like 100 people are like, yeah, it's totally gotta be him. And it kind of blows up like that. You have his sister as well as his other friend, Finn, trying their best to kind of defend him and everything. And I love that Jake ended up they ended up going to Jake because Chloe and Dax's mom was actually a friend of Jake's back in high school. He kind of owed it to them because his mom their mom helped him out a lot, back in school. It's like he wasn't that good at math, but she was very smart and intelligent and she helped him a lot. And, this is what his way of kind of paying him back. Because sadly, you end up finding out that she kind of had like a breakdown because, diagnosed with schizophrenia. So much that their dad left, and so basically it's kind of been Dax and Chloe all on their own. And I really hated that coach, the football coach. I was so sure he was the killer, just because it's like the moment at the funeral and everything, he's just like, yeah, Jason, he could have done so many great things, but then that low life piece of crap, Dax, killed him. He's a murderer. I was like, dude, wait, what? I was like, calm the hell down, dude. It's like, it's just like, holy crap, that just blew my mind. It escalated that quickly. Even Jake was kind of disgusted. Like, dude, you need to calm the hell down saying all that crap. It's like, you're at a memorial and everything. Like, it's just, you never hear people talk about, something like that. So that's why I was instantly thinking like, oh, you're guilty. You're overcompensating. What even pissed me off even more was the fact is he got so much attention, especially when he was on TV with Chloe and kind of tore them down. It's just like, oh, telling it how it is, and it's like people are like cheering him on. It's like, oh yeah, he's brutally honest, he's amazing, yeah, he's not PC. It's like, really? Because to me, I just chalk it up to him being a complete and utter asshole, which everyone else kind of did too. Because you also Louise kind of rolling her eyes at him like during this whole thing. To me, it kind of reminds me of that Family Guy thing, where Peter kind of got his own segment called, oh, you know what really grinds my gear? Because he was like, you know what, Luis, I'm going to tell you how like it is. And it's just like, oh, shut up. All these people kissing his ass and everything. But what I really like is when we end up finding out that Jason ended up getting beat up, a bit of a hazing process by two members of the team, because the coach kind of told them to kind of whoop the freshmen into shape because they were basically being too soft. And Louise kind of turned it back on her. She was a little smug about it, being like, I guess you were just telling it like it is, huh? Basically, he was like, if those, it's like, no, it's not like that. You're wrong. You're putting words in my mouth. He's like, yeah, if those idiots went off and did something, that's on them and not me. And she's like, oh, I guess that's just you telling how. I was like, yeah, you get him, Louise. It's like, because he just got underneath my skin. Kind of going back to it is one of those situations are kind of like, is Julia a good person or not? When she kind of blindsided Jake because like it was just Chloe that was supposed to be up there kind of talking about Dax's character. And then Julia ended up bringing on the coach as well. And Jake was like, no, you need to get him off. And then, but the sister was like, no, I can do it. But then they brought up the whole voicemail situation, which to me wasn't that damning of evidence. It's like he sent it to him 6 weeks ago saying to stay away from his sister. Yes, it was threatening, but it's like, normally, watch TV shows like this. It's like, oh, dude, stay away from my sister or I'll kill you. It's like, no, he just said, dude, stay away from my sister, and left it at that. It was not as big of a threat as people were making it out to be, because like the cops were talking about the fact is originally like, it's like, you think we'd arrest your client without motive? It's like, I was like, what is the motive? I mean, it turns out that basically Chloe worked at a strip club, and Jason and his friends came there. Jason got a little handsy, got kicked out. She told her brother about it. That's what the whole voicemail was about. But nevertheless, getting back to it, like he kind of like once again continuing his assholery, his douchebagness. He was like, oh yeah, everyone in their family is crazy. It's just kind of like, it's just like, shut up. Don't kind of take that and try to throw it in people's faces. It's like, oh, obviously your brother's a cold-blooded murderer because your mom's crazy, so it kind of runs in the family, blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh my God. And it kind of sucked because Julia kind of blindsided him with he was kind of super pissed. Like, how could you blindside me with that? Not only with the coach, but also the voicemail situation. You kind of see Julia kind of feel a little bad about it. I was like, come on, Julia, you were doing so good. You and Luis kind of made up, which I was actually surprised because at the beginning I was like, okay, so we're just going to skip over y'all being pissed at each other thing. Because I was like, she was kind of, I mean, that, I guess it just shows you how much of a professional Luis was. Because she was like, okay, we kind of got the top story at the beginning when, during the whole Oscar situation, which I'll be getting to that later on, but I chalked it up as like, okay, I guess we're just not going to deal with that. Just kind of let that be a thing that was kind of dealt with in between episodes or something. But it's like, no, Julia brought it up. She's been sending text, voicemails, and stuff like that, saying how much she's sorry. And then Luis is like, I kind of screamed at you. You understand now why I got so upset. And she's like, yeah, I'm sorry. So things are good between them again. Because what ended up happening in this episode was the whole Eric kind of popped up again. Side note, just because it's literally in the back of my mind. Because I kept forgetting his name. I think his name is Marcus Blucas. Blucas. I'm sure I'm butchering his name, but he's from a USA show called Necessary Roughness. If you've never seen that, I kind of highly recommend you check it out. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there just because it's just like ever since I saw him in the first episode, I was thinking that, but I didn't point it out. That's one of the shows I know him best from. So, but the fact is their anniversary's coming up. He did a favor for her, the whole getting a judge to sign off on some things. For Jake's, because Jake asked her for help, and, it was coming on a 1-year anniversary, and basically he was asking her for dinner. He missed her and everything, and it sucked because Julia had mentioned it earlier in the episode to Luis, she was missing him. It's just any little thing she smelt that had his scent on it, his scent on it made her just think about it, just she thought he was the one and everything, and he was asking her to dinner. He's like, just one dinner. I'm going to therapy, to kind of fix my problem. And, until, make sure that I'm well enough before I, attempt to go out with you again or, try to make things work between you and me or with anybody else. And he's like, hey, come on, dinner, just us. It's just dinner. And we kind of cut away from it. You see her face because you see her kind of struggling with it. I'm like, oh, Julia gave in, didn't she? I mean, not trying to blame her. It's I can speak from experience. The heart is a fickle bitch because it will make you kind of go back to an ex and you're just like, I don't want to feel the way I do, but it's those feelings are still there. That wound in your heart is still fresh. That love in your heart is still there, even if you're trying to cast it out. So I was like, yeah, she kind of got suckered in by that thing we call a heart. But it was no, her and Luis are having dinner and they end up burning the photos, which you see it kind of bother her a little bit, but you also see kind of her letting out a breath of relief. So, I mean, that's good. I'm glad it worked out like that. And it kind of proves that, hey, her and Luis are on good terms again. Granted, her and Jake are on good terms again because she apologized for it. It's just it's always good and bad when it comes to Julia. It's she does one good thing and then she turns around and does a bad thing. Then she turns around and does a good thing. It's just kind of, like I said, it's so hard to say. It seems like she's a good person. She tries to do the right thing. I mean, really what comes down to her is the biggest thing and most important thing is ratings. It's a good TV show. But nevertheless, getting back to the main thing in the episode, okay, basically there's evidence saying that he was still alive after the football players beat him up. So they didn't kill him. The coach didn't kill him, but he did get beat up. But he called, Dax's home line, but no one was there except for his friend Finn. And I'm like, really? I was like, holy crap. Because basically Finn explained it. He was like, I picked him up, but he was happy about being beat the crap out of because it meant they were accepting him. He found new friends, good friends. But, because him, Dax, and Finn all grew up and were best friends growing up. At the moment, he got into college because of a football scholarship, and Finn was like, yo, me and Dax were happy for him, but it's they lost touch. They didn't hang out as much, so they kind of lost touch and everything. And it's Finn was like, yo, I was there for him. I was his friend. It's they left you there beaten up and everything, but I'm the one that you called and I came to pick you up. Kind of shows you how much of a friend I was. But basically, when he said that, Jason basically kind of laughed at him, basically calling him a loser, being really? Your friend is no, I don't need you anymore, loser. I got new, cooler friends. pissed off, Finn grabbed a rock and threw it at him. Sadly, ended up killing him. And he's just like, he got so mad because he was like, we're supposed to be friends. I'm your friend. I've always been your friend, and you did that to me. But then the irony, I don't know why I keep trying to say that. The irony behind it was because he set up Dax, his other longtime friend. And it's like, oh, you're pissed at him about not being a true friend to you. But it's like, you're not a true friend to Dax either because you try to set him up for murder. It's like, screw you. Like, don't you see, like, the irony and the hypocrisy behind that? It's like, you douchebag. I mean, holy crap. And you're there trying to comfort his sister, like, during this hard time and everything. And you're there with her when she went to go get Jake. It's like, oh yeah, prove his innocence and everything. It's like, and the entire time, it's just, that just sucks. And his reason for making it seem like Dax was the killer, I mean, because it was him who actually started the whole whisper thing, turning everyone's attention towards him. That's what I meant by framing him. It's like, why'd you choose Dax? Because he knew everyone would believe it. And it's just like, you're a horrible friend. You complain about Jason being a horrible friend. You're a terrible friend too. It's like, holy crap. Like, you could have easily set up anyone, but you chose to set up a good friend of yours too, dude. That's just unforgivable, man. And then on the flip side of the episode, kind of focusing on the whole Sarah's murder aspect of the episode, we had the whole beginning thing where, basically Levi got outed. And basically he went to Jake, he's like, no. I'm trying to talk to Oscar, but you won't let me. I'm trying to explain to him it's not what he thinks. And he's tearing up a little bit and everything. And then, like, that's when I kind of pieced it together. I was like, wait, is it the way I think it is? And then Julia ends up revealing it at the end of the episode. I was like, yeah, the way he was acting like he was in love with Oscar. That's what this whole situation was about. That's why he pretended to be Sweet Vicky, because it was the only way he could kind of get Oscar to kind of open up to him, treat him in that way. And it's just like, holy crap. I was like, that's such a damn shame, dude. Like, he was so in love with him. That's why he sent all those pictures, because he was like, I was trying to protect him. It's like the Jake and Sarah picture, because it's like, hey, I want you to see that Jake's not the friend you think he is because he slept with your wife behind your back. The picture of Sarah with the bruises on her face, because he didn't want to take the chance that Sarah might use that against Oscar in the future. And then the whole cheating and everything was just kind of like I guess he had his own explanation for it, but part of me is kind of thinking like to put a strain on everything and kind of force him. It's like, oh no, he has no one to turn to. I guess he'll turn to me, or maybe he'll turn to me as Sweet Vicky. So it's really sad, because like when it all comes down to it does seem like he didn't kill Sarah. He wanted Sarah out of the picture because he didn't think she was the right fit for him. It makes you wonder how long he's been in love with Oscar. I mean, they've known each other since they were kids, so maybe ever since then. But it's just like, I pieced that together earlier. I was like, is that why he did what he did? It wasn't trying to manipulate Oscar, in that whole, trying to get him to spill his dark secrets. It was just him trying to get Oscar to open up to him like he would a significant other, like someone he really cares about, because, he wanted more from their relationship. And it's sad it didn't work out that way. I mean, even worse, because you see at the end of the episode, he kills himself. Like, because I caught a small preview at the episode, and I saw him lifting up the gun. I was like, I thought he was going to shoot Julia. I was like, oh crap. But I was like, nope, he turned the gun against himself and tell Oscar I'm sorry, because he brought her there just like, oh, you get the real story. And it's just like, holy crap, man. That sucks. I mean, because now it's not even like we're closer to finding out who Sarah's killer actually is. I mean, he was kind of the last suspect. I mean, there's always the possibility that Oscar actually did it, but I don't think so. I mean, it also makes you wonder, will that come out? I mean, it's still there. It's still looming over Jake's head, the whole, like, photo of him and Sarah together. I mean, the last person we saw with it was Julia. I mean, I don't know whether because we saw Julia hand it to Jake, but I'm pretty sure the last time we saw it was, like, Julia putting it back in her desk and kind of locking it. Remember, like, because I kept pointing that out, it's like they made sure to show you where she hid it, but she did show it to Jake, so I can't remember if the locking it up was before or after that. I don't remember now. So I just get the feeling like someone's going to bring that to light, because we did have Louise going to her desk to kind of get all those photos of her and Eric to kind of burn. So it's like, maybe she accidentally came across that and is kind of wants to, I don't know, maybe in some way trying to get, like, settle the score for the whole last episode situation with that story about that soldier. Maybe not. I don't know. Like, it seems like everything's okay, but maybe Louise is just pretending like everything is okay because she's still super pissed at Julia and is trying to strike back at any moment. I don't know. That's just where, I mean, it's just, I'm seriously invested in it. It's just going to be like, holy crap, like, that just sucks that happened in front of, like, Julia, and she's covered in his blood, too, and everything. It's like, crap. Kind of, since I don't want to kind of end things on a very, like, super depressing note, I do want to kind of point out the whole Ryan and Ella aspect of this episode. I really, for one, it's just showing you just how smart Ella is. Like, the fact is, I like the fact is that she used a whisper program to kind of figure out who the killer was. It's like sending out a fake whisper being like, oh yeah, they released Dax and they're coming to arrest the real killers at the school or whatever, and then the two football players ran out. So that was pretty smart on her part, but it was also kind of interesting seeing we get an opportunity to really learn a little bit more about her, because she ended up talking to Ryan and telling Ryan that she's kind of homeschooled, and he's like, oh, it's like, she's like, oh, I bet you, I knew you'd think it was weird. He's like, nah. He's like, I went to a private school, and you see where I am right now? I'm doing other people's errands. You were homeschooled, but look at you. You're like working at a law firm and everything. You're successful. And it's just kind of like, oh, like, it's kind of one of those things you kind of in the beginning thought like, oh, like, Ryan's kind of one of those pampered douchebags, but it's like, no, like, you kind of see him kind of that, you know, that kind of good character quality of his. Like, he's trying to get ahead and everything. He had an opportunity to tell on Ella about, like, she told him not to kind of tell Julia about that whole situation with the football players and everything. And he did. He kept it quiet. So, you know, for her sake and everything. So that was kind of cool. So, because I was really nervous. I was like, please don't betray her trust. And it's like, no, he didn't. And I also was surprised about the whole Ella, like, well, her secret, because I wasn't expecting her to kind of reveal that to him this episode. Because it's like, you knew something was up with her house, because she was like, yeah, like, he was like, oh, tell me your address and I'll pick you up. She's like, no, just meet me here at work. And he kind of knew it was weird. And I was like, okay, that's a little weird. What's she hiding? But she ended up telling her at the end of the episode. Apparently, she's been living in a motel for 3 years. Because apparently, you know, it's just her and her mom growing up. They moved around a lot. So they never really settled on one place. Just moving around was the kind of, being very nomadic was kind of like home to them. So for her, it's like buying an apartment, you know, it's like, she didn't even bother buying furniture because it never felt right, because like, it felt a little too permanent. So that's why she lives in a hotel, just because it's like, it's kind of a place where she can just go, I can grab all my stuff and move at any point in time. It's just, you know, she lived most of her life like that. And she kind of opens up to Ryan and kind of shows him that side of her that no one else knows about. So that was kind of interesting. It's really sweet. I'm kind of glad that they're kind of hitting it off and kind of, you know, the relationship contains more, you know, jokingly when they first show up, that, you know, being more than just kind of felonies and misdemeanors being their thing, you know? Because she's like, oh, so you're asking me out on a date? He's like, no, we're just hanging out. It's like, we're adults. It's not just adults don't just hang out. It's a date. So that was kind of cool. Like I said, just kind of wanted to end that on a more higher, more positive note, not something super uber depressing. But I'm very interested to see where we go next episode, because it's like currently we have no other suspects in this whole situation now that Levi's out of the picture. I mean, especially considering now you know the truth about why he did what he did. Like I said, it's still a strong possibility that Sarah wasn't necessarily the best person for Oscar. I mean, because, you know, Levi was so in love with him. And whether it's one of those situations where it's like he was so obsessed, he just automatically think that, or whether was it really because he saw a different side of her that kind of proved that. The fact is, that whole passport thing is making me think otherwise. Because as we know, like, we found out last episode, the abuse thing was like, and the cheating was years ago. Like, she forgave him and everything. So I don't know. I mean, it still doesn't change the fact that she could have decided she was going to run. But the fact is, the whole, like, oh, you slept with Jake. It seemed like now when you look back on it, it kind of makes that whole situation a little dirty, because it makes you think she was seducing him. Now I'm kind of back to my theory of, like, she was working with someone and they were basically going to try and screw over Jake and Oscar. What if the real situation was we were like, oh yeah, we're actually going to kill Jake, and not Jake, Oscar, and be like, oh, I'm the sad widow, I inherit everything from him. But the partner turned against Sarah because maybe Sarah kind of backed out. Maybe the whole situation when Jake kind of made her go, nah, I'm not a part of this anymore, and ended up the partner ended up shooting her. I got like, that's my only running theory. It was my theory before, and I kind of backed down on it, but I mean, that's still a strong possibility, and I'm very interested to see whether that turns out to be the case or not, whether like Sarah was into some very shady stuff or not. So, and now moving on to this week's episode of The Blacklist. So many interesting developments. First of all, just casting wise, we had Matt Servito and Ulrich Thompson. Now, I got super excited when I saw Matt Servito's name. I had to look up his character from Banshee, but I couldn't remember it. I was just like, oh, Brock, how could I forget? But I was super excited. I was like, we got two main cast members from Banshee again. I was like, the moment I saw his name, I was like, okay, what's most likely going to happen is like, I was thinking like, okay, he's the one that's actually taking care of Kate in this episode, isn't he? Because like, we still hadn't seen the person. But then I saw him because he plays the character Sebastian, who's basically Kirk's doctor, and I'm like, oh, you're in the same scene together. This is so good. It's to anyone that's never seen Banshee, which I did I did the entire review of like every episode of the final season. But nevertheless, if you've never seen Banshee, they were at the most odds because they were on different sides of the law. Brock, Matt Servito being a cop, and then Ulrich Thompson playing Proctor being kind of a criminal. So it's kind of interesting, like he's in this episode taking care of Kirk. It's so good. It makes you wonder, did they do that casting on purpose? Because that was nice. Even if that wasn't like intentional, it's even accidentally, that's still pretty awesome. It's probably just like, hey, we decided, Matt ended up being the right person for the role, whatever the case may be. I don't care. Some interesting development in that whole Agnes front is like, yeah, it turns out a bit, there was no lie, what Reddington said last episode about like needing either Agnes or Liz to kind of help him with his condition, turned out to be true. And that he has to make a decision because Sebastian is telling him you can't do this whole situation because taking stem cells from a child, like especially one that's young, could have ramifications. It could turn out to be fatal. But he has some lady that's his partner or whatever, and she's being like, "You have no other choice. Your assets have been frozen. You've got no resources. You've got maybe 6 months left. The only way you're going to save your life is by risking her." So, I mean, she kind of brings it up again nearing the end of the episode. And it's like, I honestly don't know which direction he's going to go, because he could easily go that route and everything works out fine. And he never tells Liz the truth, or maybe he does tell Liz the truth because he doesn't want lies between them, because he knows that if something happens to Agnes, he will never get Liz or Masha back. He will lose her forever because she will never forgive him. I mean, speaking about that whole front, like the whole situation with Tom in this episode, like Liz was like, don't do anything. We got this feed. He's letting us look at our child. If we try tracing it, he's going to be super pissed, and, we might lose any chance. Because basically she was going to try and convince him, be like, oh, give him what he wants. He wants her love. He wants her to be on his side, and she's like, I'm gonna give him that, but make him see what he wants to see, but really I'm gonna be deceiving him, which I was thinking like, oh, that's gonna be very interesting to see how that all plays out. But didn't even have to worry about that playing out because Tom decided to take things in his own hands, try tracking, got some people from his old days to kind of trace it, and I'm like, the moment that happened, they showed up, I was like, this isn't going to work out. You promised Liz you weren't going to, and they're having a conversation on the phone. I'm like, please back out at the last second. Well, I was like, no, he didn't. And he showed up, and it turned out to be like, they were probably bouncing off the signal somewhere else. The trace, they ended up leading them to a computer in a house, and it's just kind of like, and Kirk was like, I thought I told you, and it's like, I see that you betrayed my trust, and he kind of ends it. So, which leads to Liz being super pissed at Tom. It's understandable on both fronts, because you understand where Liz is coming from. It's like, I told you, I made you promise you promised me you wouldn't do that. I had a plan in action, like, doing what you did jeopardized our daughter's life. It's like we had a plan, things were working out. This way we can make sure that she, we kept an eye on her. Now we have no idea what's going to happen to her. We have no idea what he might do to her. Yes, he won't hurt her. That's kind of the whole point, because if he hurts her, that means he's going to be losing our love, kind of tying back into the point I was making earlier. But Tom is like understandable too, because it's like he's a worried father, and he just wanted to do something. He couldn't just sit by and do nothing. He needed to do something. It's just like his little girl's out there all alone. He wants to bring her back home. But at the same time, it's like, but Liz is just as much worried about her as he is worried about her. Probably arguably even more so, just that mother-daughter connection. Like, a mother and child, you can't really, like, that's a human that grew inside of you. That's a connection. Like, I'm not trying to say, like, Tom loves Agnes any less, or Liz loves her child, Agnes more than Tom loves her. Nothing like that. But it's like there's a special connection between a child and her mother. It's like you literally grow into your mother, and it's just kind of like that's a connection that sadly you will never have with your father. And you just like, because you losing your child is kind of like losing a part of yourself, because that child for the longest time, for 9 months, was a part of you. And and sadly Liz kind of blames herself, because she's like, for one, she lied to Reddington about the whole situation, but she kind of told him the truth at the end of the episode. She kind of blames herself, because she's like, I'm her mother, I'm supposed to protect her, but I'm kind of failing at it. It's my job to protect her. The whole thing about getting away from you essentially was to protect her, but now I've landed her in even more trouble. So it's kind of like she blames herself on that front. It's like if she had never gone through this plan, maybe Agnes would be with her right now and not in Kirk's hand. And like I said, I'm curious to know what will happen between her and Kirk. If Kirk ends up being her father, which we're still not 100% sure if that's the case, because, Sebastian was like, we still haven't, tested whether she's a genetic match or not, finding out whether they really are related or not, Agnes and Kirk. So I don't know. Maybe the test results will kind of show you, it's like, oh, they're not related, meaning him and Masha aren't related, meaning she isn't his little girl, or at the very least, he's not her dad. I don't know. Like I said, I'm bringing it up again. I truly, truly believe, I've said for like the past 1 or 2 episodes, that I truly believe there's truth and lies with everything Kirk and Reddington have been saying. Like I said, granted, Reddington hasn't been talking. Reddington, like always, has kept his mouth shut. So I don't think anything he's ever told her was a lie. I think, because, Liz got mad at him last season because she thought the person looking for her was her mom. But it's like, because Reddington told her that her mom went into the sea and just walked into the sea and no one ever saw her again. So whether she's alive or not, I don't know. But did tell her that her dad was dead. But granted, that was something she remembered on her own. So that's why I'm kind of debating. It's like, she shot her dad. I don't think that was something she misremembered. Like, that can't be something that Reddington influenced into her mind. That had to be something she remembered. It was kind of a repressed memory. Not unless she got the perspective wrong, and it's like she thought she shot him, but it turns out, hey, Reddington was there and he shot him. So, that might be the case. You never know. So, I really like, kind of tying it back into it, because I kind of skipped over it. This episode's main blacklister was Gaia. He's basically a quote-unquote stealthy eco-terrorist, whereas eco-terrorists kind of usually end up causing a big commotion, like, where there's like, oh, there's this problem about Earth that we need to solve, and not a lot of people are paying attention to it, so they cause a big, extravagant thing that basically leads to people dying. And it's their way of kind of getting people to focus on their message. But Reddington kind of brings it up, being like, in that case, it ends up making it more so focused on the person than the message they were trying to get across. In his, because he's able to keep things so stealthy and make it seem like things are maybe an accident, he's able to convince people, makes people kind of focus more on the issue than it is to focus on the person who's doing it wrong in the situation. And when you look at the situation, this guy, especially when you look at his family situation, what happened to his son. Essentially, he was a part of the Navy. He was a decorated soldier and whatnot, but he ended up going to Fukushima for some kind of mission, ended up getting radiation poisoning, and that led to his child kind of having a deformed face. I think his son's named Skylar, kind of treated like a freak or a monster. And so that's probably, I guess, it motivates him to kind of do a lot of the stuff he does. It's because it's like, a lot of people are warned about certain situations, but they don't listen. So he kills people to kind of make a point. Like there was that whole situation where he ended up poisoning over 100 people with, he ended up contaminating a river because he was like, oh yeah, like if you're not careful, this thing could end up spilling oil into the river or something. Like it was spilling some kind of chemicals into the river or something, and it could hurt a lot of people, it being a possibility, but no one really listened. So he sabotaged it and made it leak into the water, and that ended up killing a lot of people. So he killed a lot of people just to get his point across, and he kind of did that this episode too. That was kind of his final thing. He was even telling his wife to get their child out of there, and get as far away as possible. So, like I said, it's a sad story. You understand why he did what he did. It's like, yeah, you wanted to fight to protect Mother Earth. You want to kind of make things right, get some kind of justice for the fact is that you're kind of a dying man just because of radiation poison, but also what happened to your kid. But it still doesn't justify the fact is that you're willing to kill a lot of people to do it. What I was really surprised about was the whole situation. Like, I thought what was going to happen is Reddington's going to take his wife hostage and use her as a bargaining chip to get him to stop, because it's like, Gaia, because he never told Liz why Gaia would be what would be the connection to Agnes or not. Getting back to Iran, was like, Harold was like, hey, you can turn off the blades of his chopper, and then Iran, he was like doing it, but he didn't go through with it. Like, he was like one click away, but he's like, it meant killing him. Now, I don't know whether that was from a religious or moral point of view, whether it's like, because I can't remember. I can't, it's like you kill one person, you can never kill another person again. Like, what, because I'm trying to remember if Haran has killed someone in the past, because I'm thinking like maybe like, it's like one death is kind of excusable, like not necessarily excusable, but it's like, you get you get one shot, and if you do it again, it's just kind of blasphemy. So that's why I'm thinking like that might have been like a more religious aspect. I don't know. Or it could have easily just been like, his rule of thumb. It's just like the fact is of taking another life. But like I said, I don't remember. There might have been earlier cases in the series where he did that. So I can't remember. But he didn't do it, but Harold kind of pushed the button, ended up crashing the helicopter. Could have hurt a lot of people. There were some kids nearby, but they were able to run away. The copter kind of crashed down a little further away, but it could have ended very badly. I thought it was going to end badly, but luckily it didn't. And Harold, Haran was like, I'm sorry. And Harold was kind of like, no, for what? You were doing your job just like I was doing mine. Now, what I'm trying to interpret was Iran apologizing for, like, it had to be like for the fact that he froze like that he was a little hesitant, but Harold's like, no, he understood and he did it himself, just, because he knew like Iran had his reasons for not doing it. And it's just like, because this way it's not Iran that actually did it, it was him. Now, kind of tying into that was a whole like situation about Samar leaving, transferring, and finally got told to Iran, and he was just like, well, good luck, I wish you the best, Even Rustler tried to convince her. He's like, is there any way I can get you to stay? You've been a great partner. I hate to let you go. Like, is there anything I can do to make you stay? And she says that basically she admits that it's not just the Liz thing. Liz plays a part in it, but it's just the job there. It's like she just doesn't know who's really on her side, who she has by her side. Like, kind of like who she can necessarily trust. Because let's not forget the fact that Rustler kind of screwed her over last season. For one, they kind of had that relationship, and then the fact of the matter is, like, she helped out Liz a little bit, and then Rustler kind of reported her was trying to get her fired for helping a known criminal and whatnot. So in that case, but especially when it comes to Iran, because she has such strong feelings for him, he obviously has strong feelings for her, but now it's kind of like, well, that's no longer a possibility. Like I said, he was one of her biggest reasons for staying. And could you notice it throughout the episode, they were a little weird and awkward towards each other, like especially Iran. Like, even so Liz on occasion kind of catch eye of it, but it was like, it almost seemed like she was very dismissive of him in this episode, and he kind of comes to her in the last bit of the episode trying to talk to her, and she was basically saying like he made the wrong move. That, bringing up the fact is that things could have gone very badly, could have cost a lot of people their lives, and he was like, but no, like, Agent Cooper was like, no, I did a good job, and she was like, no, he's just trying to make you feel better. So what I'm trying to understand about, I don't know, maybe someone did get hurt because of what they did. It wasn't him who actually, quote unquote pulled the trigger. It was actually, Harold, but I guess at the same time, he was the one that set up the whole thing. He was trying to find other ways to get around it, but, there was no time, and it would have meant a lot of people would have died, because basically what he was about to do was going to end up affecting a nuclear plant. It would have killed like millions of people. So a million or plural, I'm not sure. But like I said, she was very rude to him and everything, and just like, he was about to say something. He's like, you know what? because like he's like, are you acting like this because I have a girlfriend? Because even Rustler kind of brought that up. He's like, yo, his girlfriend is super hot. I had to go check out for myself. It's like, yeah, she's hot. Saying that in front of like Samara, you kind of see it kind of bothering her a little bit. And she's like, no, it's not your girlfriend situation that's bothering you. Really think I'm bothered by that? And he's like, you know what? He's about to say something, but he just like, I'm just gonna walk away. And while he's walking away, she's like, can you close the door behind you? And it got him so upset. He was like, you know what? When I said like good luck when it goes, moving on and everything, I take it back. You can't leave here fast enough. And he walked down and slammed the door behind her, and you kind of see her getting a little shaken up behind, because she realized she messed up, because Iran was a person that has always been by her side. He's always cared for her. He's always, he's a good guy, and she knows she messed up because she was lashing out, because the fact is she liked him, but the fact is he moved on. Because we've never actually seen Samara have a boyfriend. The only person we've ever seen her be with was like with Wrestler, but that was just kind of like a one-off thing. It was never just kind of anything more than that, which it seemed like it could have been, but I don't know. Truth be told, is out of any relationship, I was kind of always, ever since like the first season, I always kind of expected kind of Wrestler and Liz to kind of be together. I mean, that was, before him and his ex-wife got together, but it was especially more so after his ex-wife ended up sadly dying. That kind of cemented in my mouth, but in my mind, I say in my mouth. Yeah. But as every season went by, I kind of expected that more and more to kind of then to be a thing. But I mean, it never happened. So, I mean, because it's one of those situations where it's like, oh, these two people, they couldn't stand each other at the beginning. I mean, Wrestler couldn't stand Liz because he felt like, oh, she got here just because of her connection to Reddington. It's like, I've worked my butt off to get to this position. She was just a profiler, yet she gets to be part of this unit. I tracked down Reddington for years, and she knew nothing about him. Well, didn't really know him the way I do, and yet she's here and everything. So that was kind of his biggest problem. But eventually he got over it and everything, and thanks of Liz as a great partner and asset and everything like that, But it just, I don't know. I just wish Samara didn't say what she did, and it just sucks that she said what she said. And part of me was thinking, like, it'd be kind of interesting, like, she's getting, a new job and everything. Part of me was thinking, like, well, it'd be kind of interesting if she actually went off and started working for Reddington. Reddington kind of recruited her and whatnot. That'd be kind of cool, because technically she'd still be a part of the team, just kind of working from a different angle. I mean, which it wouldn't be the first time that she's worked with him, so, but still, I do hope in some shape or form things kind of work out between them. I wonder, obviously the transfer is going to probably take a while, so we're going to be seeing her for a while. I just hope, I'm curious to see whether something's going to come up to kind of change her mind on whether to stay or not. Maybe it'd be something Liz says to her. I don't know. I kind of hope so. I hope Samara stays around. Because I've always wanted her and Iran to kind of get together. Like I said, with every show, anytime I see two characters that obviously like each other, it's like, I want them to get together. It's like, stop messing around and get together already. So, I mean, sadly, he's got a girlfriend now, but you never know. That could, never know how life works. I mean, that could easily, they could end up sadly breaking. I mean, we don't really know her that well. I mean, not unless she has popped up before and I'm just not remembering correctly. So, two final notes. Obviously, we got Reddington capturing Sebastian and asking him to take him to Kirk. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out next episode. But also, we ended up, I don't know the actor's name. I see him in a lot of stuff. The guy that's taking care of Kate. He's feeding her and everything. Taking real good care of her. But he ends up having her shackled. And she's got a long chain, and she's like, oh, crap. So that's far from good. So it doesn't seem, it makes you wonder what kind of person ended up saving her. Like, legitimately, my brain, while she was laying in the bed and couldn't find him anywhere, my brain automatically went to a dark place. I'm like, she's going to try and get up from the bed, and she's going to find out that if not both, at least one of her legs is missing. And it's like, oh, dude's a cannibal or something, which I don't know what his deal is. Maybe legitimately he chained her to the bed for good reasons, which I highly doubt it. I mean, it's a possibility, but I highly doubt it. And it's like, what does that situation mean? I mean, it's like, Kate, you went through the trouble of surviving Reddington, and now you're going to get screwed over by this. Also, side note, kind of once again, another final side note, is Glenn. I love how Glenn loves busting Red's balls, because the whole situation, he's like, oh, you came here earlier, you screwed up my game and everything. I even love the fact that Dembe was giving him advice. It's like, tuck your elbows in, and it kind of make you kind of play a little bit better. And the moment Reddington heard him say that, Reddington turned to him and was looking like, what the hell are you doing, Dembe? We're here for business, and you're giving him bowling tips? But he's like, you screwed me over with the whole situation. Why am I helping you now? You were here earlier. You screwed up my whole game. We lost. But he was like, I'm just busting your balls. We won and everything. And just Randy's just like rolling his eyes. It's literally like that every time he does business with Glenn. So just kind of had to note that. Just kind of remark on that. A very interesting episode, and I just cannot wait to see where we go next week. Yeah. But that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.